Hello, welcome back. So I'm doing another book review. Today I'm going to be covering Of Blood and Fire, book 1 of the Bound and the Broken series. I'm not sure how many books are going to be in this series because he's just got finished with another novella of the series. But there's 3 main books out right now that I know of, and he has 2 novellas. So who knows how far this series will go, but I am really excited about this world and I really like it and I can't wait to share more about it with you. So my rating, this one was actually kind of hard to rate. I really did enjoy it, but I wouldn't really probably say this is like a 5-star for me on this one. It's probably more of a 4-star. It's hard. Like, if this was probably a rating out of 10, I'd probably give it more of like a 7 or an 8. So it's like, it's higher up there. It's just not my favorite yet. But I feel like it could be, especially with, if you looked at the series overall, I could see this being like a favorite series. Almost one of those like comfort read fantasy series eventually, because I really do enjoy it. Whereas this is a little more grimdark, so I wouldn't really say comfort, I guess. It still has that classic fantasy feel. So I do enjoy it. It's just this first book probably wasn't like, oh, this is amazing. So I don't really know, but I think it'll go up. And I know it's going to go up for me a little bit because I'm actually, as I'm doing this review, I'm almost done with book 2. So, as a side note, and I'm really enjoying this world, and I'm glad I picked this up. I've been seeing it on my radar for a while. I've been wanting to try it out, and I'm really glad I did. So, I'll finally dive into it a little bit more. So, this one, the reason why it's probably more 4-star over 5 is it feels more like a build-up book. You're really diving into the world. You're getting to know the characters, which is all very important. But it at times sometimes you can feel a little maybe confused. It can feel a little tedious at times. Not that the pacing's bad. The pacing is actually pretty good. So don't get me wrong on that end, but it is more of, definitely that book 1, that build up. The end of the book is good. So it's just, but there's a couple times where especially the beginning. I really didn't like the beginning. And honestly, when I first started reading it, I was kind of like, why is this so popular? But I was like, it's really popular, so I need to stick through it. And I'm glad I did. But the beginning feels very weird. And it's that, beginning. The main character, though, the thing that kind of set me off the most. So the main character is Callan. And I had a really hard time with the voice of the character and his age. I couldn't reconcile them. In the very beginning, he almost sounds like he's like 9 years old or something, like 9 or 12. And then it comes to find out that he's like 18. And I'm like, this doesn't sound like an 18-year-old. This sounds like a 9 to 12-year-old. And that's kind of what I was picturing in the beginning. And then they reveal his age, and I was like thrown for a loop. I'm like, what? This does not at all sound like an 18-year-old. So I didn't really like that. And that kind of threw me off a little bit for the beginning of the book. That does get better. I knew that would get better because it's you obviously want to show character growth. And the character growth is definitely shown, but I was just a little surprised by how young he sounded in the beginning and like his thoughts. And I was a little surprised by that. So that's kind of mainly the reason why I'd give it more of that 4 stars. It's kind of just those few little like quirky complaints there. Nothing too extreme. Overall, I like the story, I like the plot, I like the characters, and I'm really excited to see where this world goes. There's a lot of fantasy elements in here that are, your classic fantasy elements, and you're going to love it. So, also going into it some more, there's also some other main characters. You have, so Callan is your main one, but you also have his 2 best friends, Dan and Rist. And they stick with him, throughout the book. And I loved him having these 2 best friends. And they're great best friends. Like, they're, they stick with each other. They, harass each other. They make fun of each other. They, support one another. It's like, I really enjoyed more of that friendship, brotherhood feel. And I feel like a lot of books kind of skip that. and I was really happy this dove into that friendship and, stuck with it, and I really liked that. So let's see here. But yeah, I just really liked the friendship, and I don't know, it's just very touching. A lot of books don't have that. But so the book is starting off with the three of them. They're all about the same age, and they live in the Glade, which is what this area is called. And they have to do kind of this proving, which when they turn 18, they have to essentially kind of prove themselves. But they get thrown out into the woods with just, I believe it's just a bow and a knife. And they have to essentially survive. And they have to come out, okay and alive at the end of it, which it's kind of weird. But they're proving themselves. And so it's a small village in the south. It's a little more isolated from the other parts of this world. And then a lot of the other elements of the world, because they're so isolated, they treat them as myths. But they start to realize a lot of these are true, which they do see a couple of this throughout their proving. There's this enemy called Urax, I believe is what it's called. They thought they were fake, but they are not fake. They are real, and they're a pretty prominent evil force in this series. And then also, after the proving, they end up going to another town. And this is when they run into the other main characters throughout the series, which will be Eric, Dalen, and Asen. I hope I'm doing better with names. I'm trying. So they run into them, and that's when they're realizing all these myths are now real, and their worlds are getting flipped upside down. This is when you realize that there are elves, there's dwarves, giants, mages, dragons. You get everything. Like I said, all the fantasy elements are in here. So I definitely like it, especially with that, classic fantasy, all the classic fantasy elements. I love it. The other thing is, I love dragons. So if you love dragons, check out this book. There is a lot. So you do get that. And I will say this book may at times feel like maybe a little bit like Eragon, which I love Eragon, but you do get some of those feel, especially in this book. Not so much the second one, in my opinion. The second book, I don't really get that Eragon feel, but you do with this one, except you do still have that friendship feel between Dan and Rist, which I liked. Eragon didn't really have the friendships, but you do get the dragon story, which feels somewhat like Eragon. And I liked Eragon, so for me, that's not a problem. And there's enough differences that it didn't bother me. So I doubt it's gonna bother most people, but you might make some of those similarities and comparisons. But there is obviously a dragon in this book, and it's such a pretty dragon. Not that I've seen it, but it's this like beautiful white dragon with these like purple eyes. Just so cool. It's like, I'm just so happy that there's a dragon in this book. Oh, and the other side thing is, so when I got the physical copy of this book, I liked the little personal touch where there's like some pictures in there actually, and this one's one of the dragon egg, and then there was some other pictures in here too with just like some like flags and stuff, which I noticed in the second book too. There was some pictures, and I like that. I didn't realize there was some pictures in there, and I enjoyed that. But I definitely enjoyed this book. It's got great pacing. It keeps you entertained. I didn't find it slow, but there's a lot of background, a lot of build up. But I was never bored reading it. This definitely has that fantasy feel, like I've been saying, but it's more of like that modern fantasy. And I don't really know how to describe that other than to say that it's more of that modern fantasy. Like it feels more of like that realistic spin to it of some of the themes, but it's also has a lot of those familiar classic fantasy elements, which is probably why with the realistic themes, you probably get more of the darker themes in the book. But I do enjoy it. Like I said, it's probably going to keep, the rating's probably going to keep going up for me. It's just this book, I wouldn't probably say it's my favorite, especially after almost finishing book 2. I definitely like book 2 better than book 1. And on another, going after this, I am also talking about after talking about this book, I'm going to talk about The Fall, which is the first novella of this series. And I even liked that better than this one. And so now that I'm done with this book, I can put it down because I know I've been moving it everywhere. So The Fall, that's the first novella. It's really short. And I think you can still get it for free if you are just signing up for the newsletter with the author. I think he just sends you the PDF of it, and so you can just read it. It's really short. I think I read it in just a couple hours, maybe like 1 or 2. So I think it's only like 100 and some pages. It didn't take me long at all. I finished it in just like an afternoon. But yeah, so I mean, I recommend reading that. I guess the question is if you want to read it before or after this book. I don't know what I would recommend. I read it after this book, but it's like if you want to get a feel of the world and let's say you started this and you're just like, I don't know if I'm going to like it. I don't know what I'm thinking. Maybe try The Fall, because The Fall shows you what is going to be possible with this world. It shows you a lot of the magic that's going to be happening. It shows a lot of the way that fight scenes are going to be written, the fast-pacedness of it. Pacedness, that's not a word. It's going to show you all of that in there. And I liked that. So I like seeing the potential that it's going to be. And so if you're having maybe some doubts while you're reading this, just pick up The Fall real quick and you'll see that it's like, wow, there's going to be a lot happening with this world. The other thing is, if you read it before, you might not, I don't know. I feel like it helps having some of this base background from this book. But I don't know. You definitely need to read The Fall though, because when you get to book 2, you're going to see some of those characters from The Fall in book 2. So you kind of need to read it just because you're going to finally recognize some of those people and you're going to be like, oh, okay, I see why they are the way they are. So whether they're good or bad. But you'll get to see some of their characters in that. But The Fall is taking place like 400 years before this. It's when the Order has, fallen apart. The dragons are, now on the bad side and the good side. They're fighting each other in the fall. So it's pretty emotional for, the characters in that. I'm not saying for the reader. I mean, I wasn't like crying or anything. But it's emotional for the people the characters in the book. There's a lot going on. It's The Fall. I mean, it doesn't end well. So it's like, how the book's going to end. But it's a good novella. And I definitely recommend reading it. Whether you want to, I wouldn't probably recommend reading it before. I'd either read it during this book or after the book. But I think even reading it side by side with this book would help. But yeah, I definitely loved both the books. Definitely Fall, in my opinion, was better than this one. But this one had a lot of world building, a lot of character growth that you need. And you're definitely going to see, the build up for the other books. And I'm really excited. Normally, I don't read novellas. But I'm really excited for this author's novellas just because of how good The Fall was. I didn't realize how much I was going to love that or how much I needed that. It was really good. So I'm super excited because there's, like I said, I'm almost done with the second book. And I know there's a third book, and he just finished another novella. I can't remember if there's another one out before that. No, I think the one he's doing now is the other one. And I'm really excited for that. I'm glad he's doing novellas with the book because it's making the series seem so, the world seems so big. And then the other cool part, which he doesn't do that as much in this book, but in the second book, I don't want to get into it too much because I'm going to do another review for the second book. But there's a lot more point of views, and I like that, and it makes the world seem even bigger. But I'll go into that more later. But this one, you mainly just get Callan's point of view. I think you do get a couple others in here, and the author does a great job when he switches point of views. You definitely feel like you're getting the full story, and you're seeing more of the world. And he does a good job of differentiating the characters. You don't feel like you're reading the same character each time. Each character feels unique and different. And I really like that. So this author did a great job. I'm really excited for this series. I'm so glad I picked it up. I definitely recommend it, especially if you like the fantasy that has the dragons, the elves, dwarves, the magic, the mages, like all of it. If you like all of that, especially dragons, pick this up. And I'm really excited to see where the series is going to go. I wish the series was done because I hate waiting, but there's quite a few books out, so I think I have some time, but I know I'm going to finish them pretty quick because, like I said, I'm almost done with 2 already. And I'm really happy to have read The Fall. So if you want to try that out, I mean, even if you're not sure if you really want to dive into this and you do want to read The Fall first because it's free, you can. And I think that'll give you enough of a taste of everything that you'll want to continue. But if you, ideally, I would recommend either reading it during this book or after. I just think that will help. And I think it'll help make more sense of what's going on, and also giving you the full depth of everything. But you definitely need to read The Fall, especially before the second book, because you'll see a lot of those characters in there. But yeah, so check it out. I definitely recommend checking it out. Even though I didn't necessarily probably give it a full 5 stars right now, I still loved it. And I still recommend it. And I still really think you should pick it up. Because rating systems aren't accurate or fair, and I hate rating books. But I'm going to give you a little bit of a feel of probably how I'd rate it with some other books. I don't know, but I'll probably end up I know overall I'm probably going to rate this series really high. So pick it up, enjoy it, and thanks for watching.